So this is something a little different. Like many of you, I grew up on a healthy diet of Wii games during the early 2000s, which included a lot of Wii-era classics like Mario Galaxy and Twilight Princess. But I also had a lot of fun with the typical Waggle-style games like Wii Sports and Wii Party. Like, admittedly, there's not a ton of substance to these games looking back, but I just really enjoyed them for what they were. And one such Waggle core game that I really enjoyed was this little title called Wii Play. If you grew up with the Wii like I did, you probably played this. It's got some interesting games, though many of them leave a lot to be desired, even back in the day. Honestly, as a kid, I just thought most of these really sucked. Though notice how I said most. Well, that's because there was always literally one game in here that I always came back and played. It was called Tanks. Like, you really have to play Tanks to understand why it's so fun and interesting. I just really like playing it. It's a great and challenging arcade-style tank experience. Okay, now, fast forward to the year 2018, and I'm a hobby animator. I'm putting the final touches on my Dota 2 short film contest entry called Night Trek, and I'm bored. Then, suddenly, I remember that Wii Play, a game for the Wii, has a really fun Tanks minigame. I spent a good, 10 minutes on Google trying to see if anyone made a web version that I could play, but I don't really find anything. So now I'm in a bit of a pickle. I could go through my things and try to find my Wii and my copy of the game to play it, but that just feels like too much work right now. I could also go download and set up a version of the game to play on my computer, but that also feels like too much work. So I sit there for a couple minutes, and then I decide I should just remake it myself. And then I did. Well, okay, tried. Like I said, I was a hobby animator. I didn't have any game-making experience, just a little bit of TF2 mapping, nothing special. But I was feeling particularly bold and confident for some reason. Maybe it was because I was high on Dota short film fumes or something. But I took that window of confidence, installed Unreal Engine 4, and, well, tried to make a game. And, in the end, here's what I got. Oh, that is loud. But luckily, I added a volume slider in my amazing main menu. So yeah, this is called Ricotanks. I called it Ricotanks because it's like Ricochet, and also because there's tanks. And yes, I do know how to spell the word Ricochet. So you can just click on Start, and then Start again. And thus, you can see the Wii game inspiration going on here. So obviously WASD moves, and then you can look around with the mouse. So the objective, eliminate all enemy tanks. Now, I don't think that that is a friendly tank. So when I go to eliminate it, you'll see it's gonna start firing. That's right, its gun actually follows you as it just continues to shoot. And of course, you have to be careful, because in this game, one shot is one kill. So you can say I lose a life for that. But luckily, you can also shoot. Success! Now see, a big feature of this game is, of course, the bouncing and the ricocheting off of walls. So, I could go and engage with this one, but, you saw how dangerous that is. So instead of directly engaging, you can just bounce it off the wall and hit it. There are also breakable surfaces like these boxes. Very satisfying. And oof. Yeah, see, this game can get very chaotic the more and more tanks you add to the battlefields. Oh. Yeah, you see there, you also have to be careful because your own projectiles can also kill you. Now, this one I'm very proud of. You see, unlike the other tanks that you've seen so far, this one actually moves around. He's actually going on like a regular roaming pattern where he's actually detecting walls and kind of bouncing around like a bouncy ball while randomly changing his directions. But watch. As soon as he notices you, he'll also start shooting. He'll also notice too, watch. Watch what happens when I start shooting bullets towards him. See that? He's actually dodging the bullets. Although not well enough, it seems. Man, see, these roaming tanks can definitely be a pain in the ass. Now, you can see I lost my lives, and another amazing feature I added to this game is a game over screen that then sends you back to the main menu. Yeah. It took me like hours to do it, but as you can see, boom. Game done. Good work, me. Then everyone lived happily ever after. The end. Okay, so obviously the story was a lot more complicated than that, considering that this was my first ever experience even trying to make a game. So my development experience was literally opening Unreal Engine tutorials on YouTube, then copying it all on my game project. Which, by the way, was not entirely created by me either. Ricotanks' Unreal project began as this twin-stick shooter demo project that comes installed with the Unreal editor. Which, yeah, it does kind of cheapen my achievement here, I suppose. But starting my game in this way gave me a huge head start, in the sense that I had a prototype to work from, and something that I could play from minute zero. And yeah, from here it was all about adding more and more features. Like, the very first thing I needed to do was implement a control scheme similar to the one that Tanks has. So I needed tanks, and I needed them to move and aim separately. An iconic part of the Tanks game on Wii that I really loved is that projectiles bounce off walls. So I wanted my projectiles to bounce around too. I also wanted the projectiles to be slow, similar to the tanks themselves, which blends well to making the battlefields extra chaotic. Something else I also love about the mechanics of the game is that your shots aren't just offensive tools. You can also shoot incoming projectiles to neutralize them. It was an interesting balance of offense and defense that I really enjoyed from the original game. And that's when I learned my first important lesson about game design. Nothing is free. Like, every aspect has to be designed and implemented one at a time. Even all of these simple features like ricochets and bouncing, you have to do it all. In the land of game design, nothing is free and nothing should be taken for granted. So there I was, chugging along on my Tanks ripoff. All of these things took me like a few days to get implemented, and on top of that, I did it all only using UE4 blueprints. Want to take a look? Oh my god, what is going on in here? Yeah, if you take anything away from this video, please remember to tidy up and comment your code, even node-based code. But more on that later. Forget the code. It's fine. Because the next challenge I needed to solve was the enemy AI. This is one aspect of Ricotanks that I'm actually still pretty impressed with, actually. Not because it's like super complex, but rather because I basically did it from scratch. And moreover, I came up with something that, like, actually works. To see these systems that you yourself created suddenly breaking out into organic gameplay patterns was, in a lot of ways, a huge motivator for me. And so I continued on working on and refining the mechanics, adding new tank types, projectiles, and when I felt like I was in a spot where I was ready to start making levels, I got instantly burnt out. Yeah, levels. I think what tired me out the most was just the simple fact that I had to set everything up first, then repeatedly playtest and iterate until it was in a spot where I liked it, Then I also had to ensure that the difficulty wasn't too high or too low either. And yeah, I did that about 3 times, then lost motivation. Suddenly, rather than working on my game every day, I started working on it every other day. I made some progress here and there, added some levels, implemented a cool dynamic music system, but then I just started getting busy with school and with animation. Cause, I was still a hobby animator, and the laws of diminishing returns started to make me question whether this was all worth it or not. And so, after about a month of actively making this game, I just stopped. Ricotanks sat on my computer for more and more months. I would occasionally open it and play it, make some levels, tweak some things, but so much time had passed that my spaghetti code finally reared its ugly head. I found myself confused, unable to make sense of this pasta for which I have cooked up. My code was just so messy and unreadable that any attempts to change or alter it always resulted in something else breaking, which meant my game was now stuck the way it was. I was at an unfortunate crossroads. I could start over and remake aspects of the game from scratch all over again, or I could just wrap up what I already did and call it done, then release it for 3 people to play. I chose answer 3, kick the problem down the curb and just forget I ever made this thing to begin with, which happens to be the one I chose to do. But you might be asking yourself, how come I didn't choose number 2? That option literally doesn't require doing any more work, just releasing what I already have. And the answer to that one is that whenever the idea popped into my head about just finishing and releasing what I had, immediately my mind would go to, oh, I should do this. I should add this first. I should add these features. And of course that kind of just begins the evil loop here, where I think about adding features, realize that none of my features are addable because my code is complete garbage, put the game away, find it later down the line, yada yada. That was just what this project was. A complete and utter failure. So for the last 6 years or so, I've just had this game sitting on my computer, completely forgotten and nearly lost to time. That was until recently, when I found the files on my computer, completely on accident. Again, this failure of a game development misadventure, of a derivative copy of a way better game, built on sticks and stones. And yet, looking back at it now in March of 2025, I felt really bad about not just finishing it. One thing that haunted me as a beginner developer is the feeling that my game was just never ready. I always felt like my game needed to be perfect or this whole adventure would be worthless. And when I would run up against my own shortcomings, my instinct told me to give up and put it away on a shelf and just forget this little endeavor ever happened. But no longer. I've grown a lot as a creator over the past few years. In 2018, I was just a hobby animator who had hopes of someday becoming a professional animator. And now, in 2025, I'm a working animator who has ambitions to grow and exceed my title as simply an animator. So, this time, when I came across Ricotanks once again, I finished it. First, I did some touch-ups and cleanup where I could, though the spaghettified code was still a huge hassle. Again, please, clean up your code. It really matters. I added a full suite of 30 levels and an ending sequence. I added a narrative with a beginning and an end, and I bundled it up into a final, completed game. And now I've released it. So, after 7 years of development, hopefully it will have been worth the wait. Check the description for a link to a download. Go give it a shot and let me know what you think. And decide, did I manage to make the game good? Well, unfortunately the game still has many of the flaws you'd expect from a beginner game-making project. It's clunky, confusing at times, and somewhat unrefined and messy in ways that you can feel even if you can't see it. But I'm proud of it. I hate that I was ashamed of this for so long. I hate that I couldn't just buckle down and finish this back in 2018. It feels like I lost so much potential by feeling self-conscious about this and holding it back for so long. But the past is the past, and now is the now. This is Ricotanks, and this is my first game. Hopefully the first of many to come. Or maybe this will end up being the only game I'll ever make. But regardless, I'm happy that I finally realized this idea in the best way I could. And I hope that you can all play it and have some fun with it as well. If you take anything away from this video, then I'd say this. Motivation is an amazing driving force. And letting it drive you into fun learning adventures can lead to incredibly rewarding results. But don't let doubt creep in. Don't be afraid to make something that's just bad. Let every project be a stepping stone leading you on a journey to what you can truly accomplish. And try not to get bogged down in every little step. Because remember, the real goal is what's ahead. I hope you all stick around to see what I can accomplish in the coming years. And I hope you enjoy my fun little game project. To anyone who downloads and plays Ricotanks, I'm also putting out a bounty, a Speedrun Bounty. Whoever can beat Ricotanks in the fastest time by April 30th, 2025, will receive a special role on my Anomalous Materials Discord server. As well as this very special trophy in Team Fortress 2, signifying you as the Ricotanks World Champion. All you gotta do is join the server and post a video of your playthrough of the game. Time starts after you hit start and ends right at the game end cutscene. Competition will be stiff, I'm sure. Or barely anyone will try, because the game is kinda janky. But to any and all future Ricotanks pros, I salute you. A moment of silence. I'll be seeing you all really soon. Good luck, everyone, and have fun.